What do you do when you're cleaning out your kitchen cabinets and you come across some boxes? Well, you stop and you make a journal, of course. So this is Kylie Coo, welcome to my studio. And today I'm going to show you how I made this no-sew journal over some empty boxes that I had lying about in my kitchen cabinets. Now obviously I must have kept them knowing that I was going to do this at some point, but when I was doing a bit of decluttering, came across some and thought, I'm just going to make this journal now. So I've opened these boxes up and all I'm going to do is to cut out the two main squares. So I'm going to take all the edges off. I could have used it, kept it and had a spine on this journal and sewn signatures in, but I actually wanted to make a no-sew journal today because I know some of you don't like sewing in signatures, so you are looking for ways to make journals where you don't actually have to do that kind of sewing. So I'm just going to show you how I did this. All we need is some cardboard. It could be cereal boxes, other food boxes. These held coffee pods, and I don't actually buy these now, but I'd kept the boxes back. So just taking all those edges off. And I'm just using my rotary trimmer and my ruler to guide me. And all those little bits I'll put aside for tags. So I'm now going to do the same with the other boxes. Some were of different sizes. These were some of the edges, and I'm just going to neaten these up because I can use these as pages as well. Now one of the boxes, although it was shorter in length, it was going to stick out just a little bit, so what I decided to do was to cut these in half and make a couple of smaller pieces. Just looking at how they're all going to fit in now. There we go. These are the ones that we're going to stick. They're going to hang over the edge of the journal a bit. So I thought, well, I quite like the idea of having different sized pages in it anyway. So that's what I'll do. This one, I'm just trimming the edges off just to fit in. And what I'm going to do now is to arrange these so that I have a variety of page sizes throughout the journal. What I want to do though is to make sure that I have one large piece at the front and one large piece at the back. So two of my largest pieces will form the front and the back. So just working out where these can all go. So counting front and back covers, I have I do have 16 pages. And all I'm doing now is to cut a piece of material, roughly an inch, about 2.5 centimetres, not paying a lot of attention on exact sizes here. And I'm just going to cut each of these pieces into about 1.5 inches. Now in total the journal measures around 4.5 inches by 6 inches, which is roughly 11 centimetres by 15.5 centimetres. And what I'm going to do is to cut this into smaller pieces. I think they're around about 1 inch, 1.5 inches. And I'm going to start attaching these pages together just using, in most cases, 2 pieces of the material. So it's very raggedy, but that's okay. This is a junk journal, and it's about just making something quite quickly, using up some scraps. And I'm just taking this extra sticky glue. So something like Aileen's tacky glue would also do the business here. I don't think it would work terribly well with a glue stick unless, it was one that was extra strong. I don't think the pages would necessarily hold together. So all I'm doing is putting on 4 blobs of glue. I'm roughly looking to centre them, but again, it doesn't matter with these pages whether they're centred or not. And all I'm doing is then pushing my piece of cloth down and onto the pages. And I just want to make sure that I can flip them over, and I also press that down, just making sure that it's holding. And I need to put it aside for a few minutes and while I do the other pages. So again, I'm going to do these two, and what I do is I work my way through my 16 pages, just doubling two together each time. Now I possibly could have used smaller strips of material here. I just wanted to make sure that it would hold, and this seemed to do the trick. Those two are obviously closer in size in terms of length, so again just getting them roughly lined up. I've got this on double speed, but I was working through it quite quickly anyway. This journal didn't take too long to make, maybe around about an hour, but that probably what I should have done in between times was maybe leave a little bit longer for it to dry. But there we have, I now have 8 pieces, so 8 pieces with 2 glued together. And what I'm going to do now is take 2 of those pieces, so I'll have 4 pieces in total, and I'm doing the same process, but now I'm going to stick those 2 together. So I've folded the pages together, folded them closed with each of my little signatures, so to speak. And I'm now just going to do the same process here, but I'm going to stick these 2 together. Now, because I have 2 pieces the same size, the 2 biggest pieces, I'm going to try and just line them up. And again, I'm going to push that to the side, just being careful, trying not to move it, trying not to allow the material to come off. So I fold that over, get them in position, and then again just my 4 blobs of glue, and I'll stick these 2 together. And again I'll gently move that off to the side. You can see where I lifted it there, it lifted the material, so I'm just trying to slide it out the way. Same process again, taking these 2 little signatures. I'm just calling them signatures because it's I can't think how else to describe it, but taking these 2 and doing the exact same process. And again pushing that to the side, and I'll take my last 2, and I want to make certain that these line up because I've got the 2 that's the same size, and I want to make certain that one of the tall pieces will be a back piece. So my 16 pieces of card reduced to 8 when I doubled them up, and this will now reduce down to 4 pieces, so almost like 4 signatures. So I leave that for a moment to dry because these are delicate in a sense, but I just want the glue to harden a bit before I do any more. So I now have my 4 pieces. Again, I'm going to fold them, and then I'm going to take 2 of my signatures. So I'm always making sure that they open to the outside edge in each case. And I'm just going to line these up with the tall pieces again, making sure they're lined up, just leaving a little gap in between the 2 signatures. And again, I'm going to do the same process, my 4 little blobs of glue, just spreading it out with my fingers, and then again I'll take 2 pieces of material. Now this could be done very neatly, you know, you could cut everything to size, make a nice neat job of it, but for me it's a junk journal and it's about doing this quickly. So again, taking those other 2 pieces, and I'll do the same again. So my 16 reduced to 8, reduced to 4, and now when I stick these 2 together, I'm going to have 2 signatures of a sort left. And again, I put this aside just for a few minutes to let the glue harden. So now I'm going to fold this one over and the other one over. And again, I've got all the opening edges to the outside. So what I've decided to do here is to cut these two pieces into 4. Because I've got 2 bigger pieces in the centre, I'm just going to spread it out over the 4 just to give it a little bit more strength. You could actually run one entire piece of material down the middle if you wanted to. So gluing these in the exact same way, and you'll see that I'm not precise in terms of measuring anything, everything's just eyeballed. Of course I'm getting all glued up here, so all the threads are sticking to my fingers, but that's part of the joy. So I now have one complete book here, one big signature you could say. And again, I'm just going to set that off for a little minute to let it dry. So I've come back, it's not quite dry, but I just want to move on with the process. So that's the inside edge. And what I'm going to do now is to take another piece of material and I'm now going to give it a binding from the outside. Now you could put one large strip down the entire edge, but I'm just going to continue in a similar theme and have just a few pieces holding it, but I'm also going to make a tie for it, so that will become the closure. And I'm making that nice and long at this stage. And I'm going to make these pieces a bit longer than they were on the inside. There you can see I'm just showing how you could do it completely down the outside edge. Now each piece here must have been about, I don't know, maybe 5 inches or something, there or thereabouts. Again, didn't measure it, just eyeballing it. So now I've opened the book from the centre and turned it over. And now what I'm going to do is to glue those 2 pieces fully across and what will become my closure fully across. So at this point I'm pushing the back as close together as I can and putting on a decent amount of glue that again I'll just spread out using a brush there just to try and stop my hands getting too glued up again at this stage. And I'm just going to try and centre those and stick them in place. I could have sanded this card down and everything would have stuck a little bit better or a little bit quicker, but again today I was just working at speed. And now what I'm doing is I'm pushing it or folding the journal closed so that I can get the right size on the back. So when I open it up it will look a little bit floppy just now, but that tightens up in time because I'll put another bit of glue on it. So again I'm now just doing the same process to attach my closure. And the closure will also help to strengthen the entire piece. So there is actually glue on the inside of those pieces of material. It won't stick entirely to the spine, but what it does is it helps strengthen the actual material. So I'm just making sure that everything's stuck down and I'm leaving it this way to dry. So here it is a little while later. I didn't leave it too long, you can still see some of the glue's damp. Just opening through the pages, a few had kind of stuck together a little bit because I hadn't let it fully dry at any stage. and just flicking through my various pages. And I'm quite pleased with how this little no-sew journal turned out. Really just with some card from old packaging that I had lying about and a little bit of material. So now what I'm going to do is I want to decorate the covers. So just pulled out some of my scraps. This time I'm just using some PVA glue. And here I just have a bit of fun decorating the cover. So I'm literally just taking old scraps, there's lottery tickets, there's pieces of painted papers, there's old envelopes, and I'm just going to stick these down. So just gluing and sticking here, so I've increased the speed a bit more because it really is just the same process throughout, but I've left it in just so you can see how I've built up my covers. So even got some bits of old magazine pages here, and you'll see that in some instances I cover some of the fabric that I'd used, and in other bits I just leave it showing. So not going for any particular look here, all I'm looking to do is to get those covers covered over. And this was a great way just to use up a few scraps. So moving on to the back and just following through on the same process. Again, I was working quite quickly, but I've just put this at speed because, as I say, all I'm doing is repeating the same process over. I tend not to throw away any scraps and just keep putting them to the side, and they tend to get used up. I don't know why I'm tearing some of these into smaller pieces, but it's just the way I work. And of course this helps strengthen the journal as well, just covering it with paper. I could have covered it with one entire piece, but to me this gives a nice bit of texture and added interest, although as you'll see in a moment I go on and change it quite significantly. So giving that a dry, I noticed that the lottery tickets kind of burned a little bit, the way they do with receipts if you're doing that art with receipts that you get. Just taking some white paint now, I want it to try and just blend in a little bit. I could have left everything as was, it would have been perfectly acceptable, but I think by this point I was just in the mood for playing. So just taking that white paint and not going entirely over the cover. I don't need it all to be covered up, but yeah, I give it a fairly decent layer. So I had noticed that I had that napkin, and I thought, oh, that might make a nice cover, but I decided I wanted to put a bit of a different colour onto the page here. So just using some, I think it's sepia and Van Dyke brown, lifting some of it off. Because there was glue on the top, it was acting as a little bit of a resist, so I was quite happy with the way that was. That was a little bit of yellow ochre there. I'd used these colours for something the other day, so they were kind of sitting to hand. Again, just dabbing it up. All I was looking to do was to kind of take away the kind of stark whiteness that I'd ended up with after putting the white paint on. So just drying that off. And looking at my napkin, how it might fit. Cut that into two pieces and decide to put one piece on the front and one on the back. Now I think this napkin had originally come from Patricia Stubbs quite a while ago, so thank you Patricia, still using the things that you sent me, and I'll put a link to Patricia's channel below. So just using some gel matte medium to stick this down. Now when I was working on this, I kept thinking, right, that's me done, and then I would come back and I'd think, oh no, I'll just do a little bit more and a little bit more, and eventually get it to the point where I was happy to walk away from it. So just making sure all those edges are stuck down. And at that point I was kind of thinking, right, that's probably it. I can leave it at that. But then I thought, no, I want to do a little bit more, so I got out some washi tapes and just started to put some bits of washi down. Just tearing off a small piece and then tearing it lengthways. Using it partly to blend in the edges of the napkin and just making it look like more like one entire piece. Just patting the napkin down from time to time, checking how dry it is. So I decide here that I maybe want to add a little bit of fabric to the front. Can't quite decide what I want to do, so I try different things. And this is where it's funny with junk journals, because as much as you start off sometimes with something being junky, you still want to do something that you're kind of happy with. You can work away and the happy accidents happen, but there's still something artistic about it, and it's still about trying to do something that pleases oneself. It doesn't matter if it pleases others or not, it's about pleasing oneself in making these. So you'll see I keep changing things. I'm just trying to get something that in my mind fits in. So using fabric, using some bits and pieces of twine that I had lying about. I think that's maybe a bit of embroidery floss. Now got a piece of scrap brown paper. Looking, do I like it? Don't I like it? Does it feel right? It didn't feel right, so I make more changes. And all I'm going to do here is write the word journal. I could have used my little printing machine to type it, but sometimes it's nice just to use your own writing. Although I kind of change my writing from page to page. So deciding that this is getting close to what I want. And I'm just going to use the tiny attacher stapler to staple that together. Now, me being me, I decided I didn't want to lose the butterflies there, so I just pulled that up, moved them across, and then stuck that little piece in place. And at this point I go off and get some distress ink in walnut, and I'm just going to go round the edges. And as I said earlier, this was kind of where I kept thinking, I'm done, that's it, and I just kept going and adding a few more little bits and pieces, as you'll see in just a moment. So getting my black StazOn ink now, and I've got the script stamp. And I'm just going to use that over the covers, just randomly in different places. Using it horizontally and vertically, just to add some little bits of detail to the background. And again, I just think it helps pull the napkin and the underlying background all together. Nothing planned with any of this cover, so in a sense it took me by surprise how it turned out, but I was really quite happy with it. And I do love that little bird on the front of it. So again, taking a look, am I finished? Is there anything else I want to do? And I take out this gelato in chocolate and I just go round the edges of the front cover and the back cover. Just framing them a little bit, but blending the gelato out with my finger. And that was definitely it. So all I have to do now is to work on the inside pages. So there's my little no-sew journal made from a few little cardboard boxes that I found while tidying out my cupboards. So hope you've enjoyed this, and if you make one, then do let me know, do let me see what you've made, either in one of the Facebook groups or tag me on Instagram. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.